You know? We have a few success stories. About 4 years ago, a young lady contacted me from St. Leo class, had her for 2 or 3 classes, and she was alcoholic by 19, raped twice by 21. She contacted me 4 years ago and said, I'm a Christian now. Said, I'm a Christian now. She said, you planted a seed that someone was able to use. So, but there had to be the reason, the motivation. Okay, so that's what we're going to work from. We want to motivate disciples to be royal ambassadors. We have a newly developed academy at Teaching with Jesus Ministries, the Royal Ambassador Academy, and we'll talk more about our coat of arms a little later. So, is it of interest to teach a church to go? How many, I don't like the term pastors, but how many church leaders do we have in here? What capacity? Pastor. I know you. Elder. Okay, thank you. I'm training elders to preach right now too. Seriously, you talk to, may not be your gift, but remind me, talk to me, because I'll tell you about my friend in Ladoga, Indiana, and a website that you can use. Okay, yeah. Yeah, because I think you could help him, and he could help you. So, all right, so as pastors, as ministers, would it be good if you could motivate 100% of the congregation to be evangelists, to evangelize, to reach out? Would you like that problem? Because it would create a problem. Okay, so why did the early church grow? You know, we know about the 3,000 at Pentecost. Acts 4, Luke talks about 5,000 just men. Okay, increasing in number. 6, led to the problem with the widows not being properly cared for. Large numbers. Luke just kind of gets to the point he's lost count. Large numbers. The churches were being strengthened in faith and increasing in number monthly, yearly, daily. Okay? Guys, I don't know about you. I'm not the math. Our math guy is back here in the corner. Oh, well, he knows 2 numbers, 0 and 1. Yeah. That's multiplication. That's not addition. Because I remember the old Christian Standard days of you look to the back to see the churches with the additions. I was always excited to do that. I always wanted to see who was growing. Even as a teenager, I was just excited. I didn't know who they were, but I just liked to see those numbers. But they were additions. Could you handle multiplications? Could you handle the fact that would your skin get so wrinkled from spending so much time in the baptistry? How would you handle that? You're going to have to buy extra lotion, you know? Get rid of the wrinkles. What are you going to do with that kind of? So what's the why? Why are you not having growth daily in your churches? Why? This is open session. Don't make me shout. Go ahead.
Because, to be honest, there aren't many disciples in the church.
There aren't people who are true, committed disciples the way we're going to define that. If you are, and I hope you come to multiple sessions, you're going to hear a lot of repetition. Okay, I held a black belt in Taekwondo. Let me tell you what we had to do over and over and over and over again, because the Koreans believe in repetition. I'm going to do a lot of repeating of a principle of discipleship that is behind this, but that's exactly right. But here's what I discovered from Luke's account in Acts 4:4. Those who heard the message believed. The message believed. It was all about the message. It was not about a program. Okay? It was about the message. What was the message? Now, okay. How many of you remember your Greek? How many guys who studied remember your Greek? Okay. Well, even in English, when we put a "the" in front of something as opposed to an "a," "the" makes it stand out. You know, we're talking about him, not you. This one, not that one. Okay, that's what "the" does. And so in Luke 4:4, he puts this article, the "the," in front of the message. Guess what the message is? Logos. Anybody ever heard that term? In the beginning was the Logos. And the Logos was with God, and the Logos was God. The Logos, Jesus, is the what? Of the message. Alright? I promised somebody tonight, I think it was more. Yeah, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball. Here comes the curveball. I'm a Googleite, so I love to be on Google, and you'll see I got a lot of images and everything on here. So I Googled images of the gospel, okay, and came up with a variety of things, but I came up with this one. Now, why do you think I have marked 6 out of 10? What do you see that represents 60% of those pictures?
Crosses.
Crosses, exactly right. So 60% of the cross. Does the gospel include the cross?
Yes.
Okay. But is that the message? Is our message a message of the cross?
Empty cross.
Say again.
Oh, I'm sorry, the empty tomb. That's the message of the gospel.
Okay, is it?
The resurrection.
Is it?
Its forgiveness is a message.
Is it?
Yes.
That prayer of resurrection is the gospel.
Okay. Can I do like I do my students? Nah, sorry. I've already told you what the message is. Jesus is the message. Jesus is the message. So the other 20%, we could say, well, the source, we had to talk about the Word. We get it from the Bible, and that's important. And only 1 out of 10 of these that actually brought it down to Jesus. There is no other name given under heaven or earth by which we may be
Saved.
rescued. Sorry. Rescued! That's what the Greek word means. We can thank Luther and his gang for the redefinition. Okay, which New Testament books have the gospel? Acts is the only. Can you see that bold green underlined? I'm kind of pointing that out. Anybody have any questions about that? What only means? There's only one book in all of the New Testament, and it is not the Romans Road. There's only one book that has the actual gospel presentations. Commercial. On our Teaching for Jesus table, we have a little booklet there called The Gospel in Acts. Okay? If you can't afford it, it's free. If you can afford to give me a little donation to pay for the ink and the paper, appreciate it. Don't feel obligated. Okay? I'm in a ministry to teach, not to make money. Don't let my wife, Jim, take that out of the recording.
I will edit it.
Yeah. So, and which, because we don't have time for me to detail that, but I go through every gospel presentation and show you the message and the theology of every message. And then there's a couple of papers I delivered at a couple of conferences in there. It is a real in-depth study guide. If you want to, when you get home, go to my website. Oh, there's cards up there. Go to my website. It's free to download. Then you pay for the ink and the paper. Or just keep it digital. How many of you guys are digital as opposed to paper? Yeah. 8,300 volumes. Okay? Now, let's look at Paul, where Paul actually defines the gospel. Anybody familiar with these few verses? The gospel of God, which He promised beforehand through His prophets in the Holy Scriptures concerning His Son, who was born of a descendant of David according to the flesh, who was declared the Son of God with power by the resurrection from the dead, according to the Spirit of holiness, Jesus Christ our Lord. Show me sins in there. Show me human sin in that passage. It ain't there. I'm from East Tennessee, so I'm allowed to say that. It ain't there. Corinthians. You familiar with that passage? For I delivered to you first of all what I received, that Christ died for our sins. See, I'm sorry, I have to do that because it's bold up there. I don't know how else to stress it other than with my voice. Okay? You're familiar with this script passage, right? Now, hey, we got some sins here, right? Okay. Who was that? You were asking about the okay? There's one of the most well-known places where, according to the Scriptures, but of course it's Paul talking to Timothy, who says, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about this tomorrow in the Christology session, but more so in the section on discipleship DNA, about what the Scriptures teach us about the cross, because you cannot understand the cross without the Hebrew context. Okay, so When Paul says this, he's talking about the Christ, which, by the way, I prefer, and more often than not, I'll use the term Messiah. Because we need to understand that is not a name, that is a designation, that is a title, that is telling us who He is. The focus of this verse is on Christ, not on death for sins. Dead, buried, and raised identified which Christ he was talking about. Do you think there was only one person vying for Messiahship when Jesus was around? No way, Jose. There's all kinds of people wanting to be the leader, wanting to be the guy. But Paul is saying, hey, there's only one who, according to what God had designated through this tiny little insignificant nation that He prepared for, talked about, according to the Scriptures, and that He was the one could be identified because He's the only one died, buried, and raised. Okay? Amen. Only one died, buried, and raised. You ever have one of the verses you just pass over? I just passed over this one time and again until Scott McKnight, someone's reading on Scott McKnight, he pointed this out. Paul encourages Timothy about being strong. Look at his gospel. Remember Jesus Christ. That's his gospel. Remember Jesus Christ. Only mentions two things, risen and descended. Now, we've seen this pop up a couple of times, right? It's significant. Okay, you ready for the big surprise? Huh? Everybody ready for the big surprise? All right. Drum roll, please. For the non-believer, the gospel is
Jesus Christ.
history. It's history. You look through Acts, they're giving a history lesson every time, pointing to a human person born according to the flesh. In my situation, teaching in a Catholic church, well, I do teach in a Catholic church, but in Catholic school, I am confronted, somebody asked about this, yes, I'm confronted by Catholicism. One of the things is Mary. I was to give a Protestant view of Mary one time. It didn't happen, unfortunately, because the nun talked too long. But I have read through many of the church fathers, early church fathers, pre-Nicene, if you're familiar with that, first 300 years, okay? And Mary had one purpose only, and Catholics hate to hear this, to offer flesh, to offer a means for God to prepare a body. Why? Jim, why did He have to have a body?
So that He could die, because gods don't die.
Gods don't die. Gods don't die. So He was prepared a body. That comes up again later. So, Jesus was part of history. Are you aware that for about 250 years, scholars were doing the best that they could to deny the historicity of Jesus? And the best way to do that was to say, well, He really didn't say that. Oh, that in Matthew and everything about adultery, He didn't really say that, you know. Well, we really can't trust Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Look at all the problems. Yehu up at Duke Divinity, what's his name? Help me, you know. I see your moment, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, everybody's having a senior moment. Okay, you know, got a very devout believer, studied under under one of the greatest Greek scholars of our day, and became convinced exactly the opposite of me. You know, because I read all of this stuff with Westcott and these guys, and I'm going like, not Westcott, but anyways, whoever you want, Metzger, and I'm going like, wow, we can really trust the Scripture. And this guy's going, well, I don't know if I can trust the Bible or not, you know. And so they tried to destroy the historicity. You destroy the historical Jesus, and you got a myth. Okay, I tell you, folks, the message is about the man Jesus. Now, this is not denying His divinity. This is not about that. We're still talking about the historical person. Paul makes it very clear that he shared the fullness of God, Colossians 2:9. No doubt about that. But I want you to understand that when the gospel was given, it was to put in front of a non-believer that there was a man, flesh and blood, who was the Messiah of God. That's why I like Messiah over Christ. He was the one who was the documented prophets. You want to know what Jesus said? You want to know about me? Read Moses. Okay? So he was the one who was designated to come here. And my new expression, and I use this when I'm sharing the gospel, God wanted to invade this dark kingdom. And the best way to invade it was to send the king. The king of a beloved kingdom. Because that's what Paul describes it. So, all right, so I'm going to suggest that there needs to be a major paradigm shift in the way we think about presentation of gospel. Now let me go back. Okay? Remember, a good speaker always wants to get back to the main point. The main point is to motivate our people. To motivate everybody sitting in front of you people, preaching, teaching, elders, whoever you are, the person sitting next to you in the pew, you yourself, to motivate you. How many of you like sales calls? I love sales calls. Because until they push that go button, I've got a captive audience. And I'll ask them, what do you think of Jesus? I had one Muslim gentleman, and we had a really good conversation. And I always tell them, I know you're working. You have my permission to write down my phone number and call me later so we can talk about Jesus. So far nobody has. But one of these days, somebody's going to. Or the other one, just say about this one quickly, and it happens mostly to men. You get that young Oriental girl or young European girl who texts you, and for whatever reason, I engage them in conversation. I went to Google Translate, put the gospel into Chinese for this one girl because I could tell her English wasn't that good. You know, you don't get in front of me without hearing about Jesus. That's what we're trying to do, is to motivate. So we need this paradigm shift. So from what to what? It's already been brought up that the common gospel given today is a salvation gospel. It's man-centered. We want to get people forgiven. We want to get people to heaven. How many of you, I'm going to give your age away again, the Kennedy, if you died today? You know that one? Oh, see, they had, you used that one, didn't you? Didn't you? No? Yes, you did. I know you. I was good at that one. Man, I was hellfire and brimstone. I'm from Tennessee. We have to be. It's required on our birth certificates. Yeah. I was preaching a revival once little town, Pond Grove, Tennessee. A brick building that wasn't much bigger than this. August in Tennessee, no air conditioning. I was preaching hell that night. I said to one of the deacons, go around and close all the windows. He did. I promise you it's 110 degrees in there that night. And I was preaching on hellfire, and that's what's going to be. Anyways, so we're preaching this salvation gospel, which is very man-centered. And Dallas Willard calls it sin management. The gospel is about sin management. You ever seen something like this? Man is a sinner. Oh, but God loves you. And we jump all over. We're in Romans. We're in John 3:16. And Jesus died for you. We're going to go to Romans 5:8. Okay? You see Acts in there anywhere? All I see is Christian books that are using statements that Christians need to know what it is we believe about Jesus. Because once you follow Him, He said, teach them everything I've taught you. I think your books have something to do with that. Commercial.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. That is where the majority are. I will guarantee the majority of the people in your church do not feel comfortable doing this. They don't want to talk to people about their sins. The most common I'm hearing now is, well, have you ever broken the 10 Commandments? Yeah. And I look at him and I say, look at his nose. Does it look Jewish? Yeah. In fact, some guy asked me, we were talking about this subject. He said, you mean you didn't break the 10 Commandments when you were a kid? I said, I don't think so. I don't remember. I was a kid. You know, you never lied? I don't know. Ask my mom. Well, she did. You can't. So there are no witnesses. I don't know. You know, it's not where you start. Okay? So agree or disagree? Is this a gospel preaching text? It is absolutely it is not. You cannot read any of the sermons in Acts and see where they ever started with human sinfulness. Peter mentions it at the end of his sermon. Be rescued from this perverse generation. Scoliosis generation. That's the word he used. You know, a crooked generation. So, the biblical model we get from the book of Acts, C.H. Dodd, anybody familiar with that name? delivered a series of lectures, 1950, going something. And this is the conclusion he came to after studying in depth the Scriptures about what was the content of the message. You see it? Prophecies fulfilled, born, died, buried, rose, exalted, coming again as judge. The last one I don't see as much. By the way, I see some of you taking pictures. We're filming. I'm supposed to ask if anybody minds. This will be free on my website. And the PowerPoint is free to anybody who wants it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It'll be on my website. Yeah. Soon. I'm trying to get these things up very quickly. But pick up my card. If you don't see it, email me. I can always send it to you. Okay? But the camera's a good way to capture the screen. So anyway, that's the apostolic preaching. That's what we're already seeing. I challenge you to study the book of Acts and find anything different. You're going to see something other than the salvation gospel being preached today. So the shift is what? Of course, it's to a Jesus gospel. We've already mentioned the scripture in Hebrews. It's a prayer. Jesus is on earth, and he says to the Father, says, we know that the animal sacrifices weren't able to accomplish. They had a purpose. They're the greatest illustration in the world. And we're going to talk about that in one of the other sessions. I can't remember which. Again, I'm kind of confused. I'm allowed in 71. So, anyways, what were we talking about? I just want to see if you were listening. Okay, so the Jesus gospel, or this prayer, he says, we know that the animal sacrifices, they had a purpose, did what they were supposed to do. By the way, read it in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. There was real forgiveness language. Real language of forgiveness. That's the way the Jews understand it. And it's tomorrow, actually, in the Christology, unique characteristics of Christ. I'm going to deal with it in a little more detail. And then, well, anyways. Okay, prophetic anticipation, descendant, royal, according to the flesh. All of that is the historical Jesus. We need to convince people that he was historical. Now, here's a little illustration I love to give to my students. Anybody, oh, I'm sorry, not there yet. I'm jumping the gun, because I can't wait to get to Dionysius of Thebes. I love to talk about Dionysius. This is Peter's sermon. Historical, by the way, I've done this, I told you, I did this for every one of the speeches in that little paper I've got over there. And so we look at historical, Jesus performed. You yourselves know this man was delivered over. The audience knew him. Pentecost, right? Knew him. Godless man, put him to death. God raised him up again. The only sin mentioned in Acts 2 at the very first sermon was that they killed Jesus. At the basis of that is rejection. Why would you kill him? I want to reject him. That's not the Messiah I want. I want a sugar daddy. I want a Santa Claus. That's what a lot of people expect out of the Messiah Jesus today. They did not like his kingdom. So they rejected, they killed him. That's the only context in which Peter would demand repentance, which anybody knows that means change your mind. Peter asked them to change their mind about Jesus. 3,000 people that day changed their mind about Jesus. It is our job. I don't like that word job. It's our privilege to get people to change their mind about Jesus. Because we wouldn't have to have discussions about LBQ2 doody-woody-doos and all of the others if we could get people to change their mind about Jesus. You know the early church did. And Rome, the people in Caesar's household who's getting a hearing. Now Caesar may not have wanted to come to Jesus, especially since he was Basileia Herod. In other words, another king, kind of like in Herod, what? There's another king? Okay, he may not have liked that, but there were some who did, and it started changing Roman ethics in many ways. That's what Christianity will do as salt and light. Okay, real or myth? Here we go. Dionysius of Thebes. Anybody ever heard of Dionysius? 300 years before Christ. Greek. Both born of a virgin. Both survived temptations on their lives as infants. You can read it. Follows Jesus' story, right? Run them down. Okay? And when I present this to my students, I would ask them, Do you think the early Christians just picked up this really well-known story and passed it off as this is Jesus? Even the believing kids in my class would say, it sounds like it. And it does, doesn't it? 300 years, this is a well-known story, very accepted story, and now we got a Jew of all people, and not even a Roman. A Jew comes along, let's pass him off the same way, we'll get a better following that way. But, this is what I would show you. Let's look at the difference. No historical evidence. No historical evidence. The history of Jesus continues in you and I today. His bloodline runs through your veins, spiritually speaking. You share a divine nature with Him. Now, folks, that should motivate us to talk about Jesus all the time. It really should. My daughter got me this. Everybody see my cross? And a fish? Cross fish, cross fish, cross fish. Either way, I can get you to Jesus. You know the fish story. It's Jesus Christ, God's Son and Savior. Yeah. I can start talking about it. The cross? Okay. Yeah. Because He was a real man. He could die. Let me tell you about this Jesus. And my favorite is if I see somebody with a cross on, I'll say, that's really an attractive cross. Is that faith, statement of faith, or is it just decoration? That's what I ask them. I'm 71. I can ask anybody anything. So what if they shoot me? It doesn't matter. Let's go see Jesus. So, and I've only had two say decoration, and that's what they said. Decoration. They knew what was coming next. Sorry, Jim. I'll scream. You're supposed to follow me. Okay. So.
Well,
Oh, question. Go.
yeah, comment.
Hi, Richard.
The atheists put out a book called 26 Crucified Saviors, and it was all fabricated. The whole book was supposedly all these substitute Christs over the ages, and it was a bogus book, but they published as like fact, history,
Absolutely.
Encyclopedia Britannica, authentic, fraud, fake, all the way.
Yeah. Satan is the best liar in the world. Absolutely. So what has all this got to do with teaching the church to go? Absolutely everything, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Again, Willard will talk about, in our church today, we have massive, nominal, non-disciple. Right? What's your name? Peter. Oh, that's appropriate. Yeah. Okay. So you had mentioned that before. I think you said they're not disciples, if I'm quoting you correctly. Something to that effect. Anyway. Okay. And look at this accusation I'm making. You don't believe it? Don't believe it? What happens in your house when Granny gets sick? Is at the hospital sick? You know, about to die. What's your name? Steve. Steve. We met earlier, didn't we? As long as you remember your name, you're safe. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, Pastor, you gotta come quick. She's gonna die and go to hell. Yeah, they may not say that, but they believe that. Okay? They want to be served. They don't want to serve. We understand the 80-20 thing. We're talking about the majority. But it's the Jesus-centered message that makes disciples. Go ahead.
Well, this comes from leadership position of the church, the rulers in the church, because of what they teach the congregation. The congregation will not be able to go and serve unless they're told who to serve or what to serve.
Well, all I got to say, sir, is I've been preaching. You're going to meddling now. No, how many would agree with that statement to some extent? I agree a great deal with what it said. But I have known a lot of leaders who do it correctly, but it's not getting across. And that becomes a big question. In fact, I'm hearing more and more pastors of all ages, leaders, elders. I'm having the privilege of working with some preaching elders, Indiana and North Carolina and South Carolina. And it's exciting to hear their concept of what their responsibility is in the body. And I'm hearing more of this type of thing. But it's all about accepting the kingship of Jesus. Okay? Jesus' anticipation was a cross, right? I'm anticipating this out, looking forward to it. Mark is going to make it the center of discipleship, right? And when we look at it, learning to serve Jesus is all about following Jesus. That's what a disciple is. Okay? All right. Who are you, Peter? No, you're Peter. Who are you? Steve.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you're Peter.
Nobody.
Maybe I should use Peter.
Okay.
Come here.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get to play Jesus. Look, boy, you getting excited here. I'm the leader here. All right. So I say, follow me, and I'm going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to cross him. What are you going to do? And I'm following him. So what does he do? But later on, I say to you, Peter, I'm going to go here. They're going to torture me. All right, now you're one of my close followers. What do you think of my followers? You can tell where I'm from. What do you think they're going to do to you?
Torture me.
Okay, so what does Peter do? Remember?
Yeah, he waits and runs away. And...
No.
No.
You read the story. Now turn around. He then stops him from going to Jerusalem, doesn't he? And what does he say? Behind me say, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is what happens. We got people in front of Jesus wanting him to stop there. Thank you. Let's give him a hand. He says, no applause, no money. No applause, no money. So, all right. We are to be in this position of following Jesus. Hey, like our coat of arms. Isn't that pretty neat? That's a royal ambassador coat of arms. And it's to remind us of Jesus' royal status. Okay? That is built on the climax of the gospel according to the scriptures. Now, I say climax in the fact of his earthly participation in God's invasion, of coming to put together the force that will continue God's work. All right? We understand after that is his coronation and then to the right hand of God. But this becomes the climax of the gospel here and now, producing cross-bearing disciples. Okay? While Jesus always lives to make intercession, still with us as our King. Anybody? Did you recognize it? Anybody figure it out? Christum. Christum. It's an adjective. And it qualifies what a disciple truly is. Is Jesus faithful?
Yes.
There's scholarly argument over Romans 3:22 and Galatians 3:22, where in both places Paul uses a form of pistis, of faith, to talk about Jesus. And the most common translation is faith in Jesus, which is a total disruption of Paul's thought in the Greek, because he talks there about the faithfulness of Jesus. Hebrews talks about that. He learns obedience. That's faithfulness. He was the faithful Jew. In our conversation earlier, he was the faithful Jew. He was the only one who could satisfy the law, therefore being the faithful Jew. Follow that? So that is to become the qualification of the disciple. Peter's accusation was right on. The chicks in the middle. You did it perfect time. Unbelievable. I love it. Okay. Question, go. Comment, go.
It's incredible. Earlier you said change the pendulum. And you could see where it is now. When I grew up in the church in my early years, we were instructed to go and make disciples.
Correct.
But today in the church I am told, just bring people.
Make church members.
Bring them.
We want to make church members.
I will deal with it from the pulpit, but you just go and bring people in. But the early days, I was supposed to go out and make disciples out there.
My master's thesis was on ordination. I was really fascinated by the concept of ordination. And the last chapter that the school would not accept, they said my paper was already getting too long. I am very wordy. Yes, I know that. I was telling Steve, right? was telling Steve, my first master's paper was a 6-page paper. I gave him 42 pages. I said, I can't say hello to my wife in 6 pages. But anyways, I wrote a chapter on what, because you're aware of what ordination in the Catholic Church probably means, the ontological mark, a special marking, you know, where now they can handle Jesus. And I posited that in that chapter that the Reformation did not do anything but change the language. You agree with that? Yeah. They did not, and being from the Restoration movement, this was a Restoration school, I posited and proved in Campbell's writings that he bought wholesale the Catholic concept of ordination without the language. That's what's produced, my friend, what you're talking about, where we have this elite group. Guys, you are special. We love you. Okay? We definitely love you. Anybody's going to commit their whole life. But that's a matter of giftedness, not a marking. The only mark each of us has is our baptism. I hope you understand that. So, we are to be faithful in this. So, teach the biblical gospel. Understand who Jesus is. Highly exalted. No other name. He snatches. I love that language. Actually, that's picking up a Hebrew expression. Paul didn't lose it in Colossians. But he snatched us from the grip of darkness, the way God snatched Israel out of the most powerful hands of the day. It excites me. I love that story. I was teaching the Exodus motif, and I had an actual not Orthodox, conservative Jew in my class. I asked him what he thought. He said, this is exactly the way we teach it. Because I taught about how exciting it is. And you'll see this if you come to the session, my second session. I'm going to talk about what redemption should mean to us as a motivation to make disciples. Okay? It's a beautiful story if you pick up the Hebrew context, and because you can't understand it from the Greek. Yep, they give you $2, you can go. Okay? Freed us from slavery, executed a new covenant, abolished death. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to die. But Hebrew writers are going to say, he destroyed the one who held us captive by the fear of death. Okay? And if you don't believe people are afraid of death, look at the commercials. Are the purest example. Oh, you'll be so beautiful. We'll take the wrinkles away. You can be as fit as Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, everything is about the body and keeping it young, keeping medical. We're going. My wife's been a nurse 45 years. She says, we can't get rid of those people anymore. They're living too long. All right. Oh, you know, I'm going to show you the page my students love more than any other. That's the end. And I think I'm not sure what time we're supposed to end. But let's go to Q&A. Let's talk a little bit. What do you think? Go ahead, Peter.
What do you like that...
I like chocolate. Oh, I'm sorry, cool.
What do you like or agree with what Ray Comfort does, and what do you not appreciate?
Totally against it. Absolutely against it. Because, are y'all familiar with Ray Comfort?
No.
I actually got mad at the guy. I mean, so mad I couldn't talk to him. I had to leave. And that's not like me, you know. Give him the 5-cent tour of Ray Comfort. You may know better than I.
The what?
The 5-cent tour of Ray Comfort's approach.
Okay.
Tell them.
Oh, well, I mean, he hit it on the head when he talked about, he approaches people on the street, asks them, what sin did, if they broke any Ten Commandments.
Starts with 10 Commandments.
Just goes through the whole sin, salvation gospel.
Salvation gospel. Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah. So
And then he just leaves them to dry, even if they, say a prayer or whatever. It's kind of like, okay, cool. Like go find the church. I'll see you later. There's no discipleship. There's no walking.
Right. Do you understand the problem with starting there?
Yeah, it's all guilt based.
Well, but there's a greater problem. There's an underlying problem. All right. So, and this fits most of the people in your congregation. I'm saved. I'm comfortable. Let's be Thessalonians and just sit here and look up into the sky. Oh, we're worshiping? Oh, I love you, Jesus. Oh, etc. It's all about, I'm already safe. You didn't tell me I had to serve. That wasn't part of the contract. Go ahead.
I've talked to many believers that they are comfortable where they're at, and they're afraid to reach out and do something different.
Absolutely.
And I see a lot of churches, they grow cold, and you get day in, day out members attending and just showing up, and they're just being seat warmers, but they don't want to go out and preach the message to other people. They think it's the pastor's job.
Yeah. So I was sitting in line at Office Depot the other night. I had to go get some ink for printing some stuff right now. And, you know, I'm a sonar for people, so we're going to talk to. So I'm in line, and as a nice young family kind of guy, you can tell us what you're talking about, family man, children, and that type of thing. I'm going to hear now. I'm getting a mouse for my wife. I can get to Jesus with anything, folks. I don't care what it is. Except I couldn't find a way with him. There was the conversation, so I just finally just looked at it and said, "Hey, you a believer?" I did. I just jumped right in with both feet. I loved his response. And so a lot of what you're talking about, even of our people, he says, "Oh yeah, I believe in a higher power, just not organized religion." When people are safe, you know, the Catholic Church is experiencing this more than any other tradition because they have taught the people, if you're Catholic, you're safe. You really need the Eucharist. You really need to come to Mass. You got to do confessions. But if you're Catholic, you're safe. Okay? You just might have to spend a little bit longer in purgatory. But you're safe. Well, our people are very much in that same arena. I've got some little 8-page booklets on our table. They're free. Grab them. They're also online to print. One of them is Comfortably Spiritual. And I wrote this one after our family came from England, wife's family came from England, and the young lady that knew of the family, she brought her boyfriend, and he couldn't wait to see me. So he comes up to me and, "Hey, how you doing?" I don't remember his name. He goes, "I'm so," and I'm a believer, just like you. I said, "Oh, that's great." So we're talking the whole time, and I wanted to get over to Abby, and so I said, "Abby, you believe it?" "Oh no, I'm spiritual." Okay, and I looked at him and I said, "We got to work on that." Okay, but he decided he didn't want to. I guess he wanted to keep the girl more than he wanted to help win her to Christ. But so as a result, I wrote this book, this little pamphlet, Comfortably Spiritual, and it fits a lot of what we're talking about. And kind of at the end, I kind of get to the point of, you know, hey, look, we live in an arena, in a world where somebody is always dictating to us the way things should be. If you're an employee, you've got a boss. You know, if you play sports, you know, you have to be one of those high-paid athletes, you know, or worse yet, a WWE wrestler. You got a boss. You got somebody pulling your strings. What if you own the business? You're run by the bottom line. Everybody's run by somebody. Why not let King Jesus have a shot? And so it's kind of the approach of that. And so, and I had a young lady who is a seminary student, 21-ish, 22-ish, like that. I asked her to review it because she deals with those kind of people. She said, it's just right on. And so pick those up. Like I say, they're online. And it's a good way to get people excited about King Jesus. That's what we want to do. That's what all of this is about tonight, is just getting people excited about Jesus. What do you think? Glenn, should we get excited about Jesus?
It's all about Jesus.
It's all about Jesus. And last year when I did this, and now I'm kind of regretting I didn't leave the slides there, but I challenged the churches to make a shift and spend the rest of the year focused only on Jesus in your sermons, in everything, however you can do it. My first year, I did small part-time ministries for a long time and enjoyed it. A couple of church starts. Went to Cleveland, Ohio, and you talk about, you know, a fish out of water. You know, I walked in one morning and one of the deacons said, "You've been downtown Cleveland, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" He said, "Sunburned tongue." I'm a country boy. I've never seen Knoxville's not that bad, you know. So I went into this church. We had average attendance was between 30 and 35. Okay, it had been a Disciples of Christ that left that movement. It was in the Huff area during the Civil Rights Movement. Second most dangerous place of the civil rights movement in Cleveland, in the United States. And that's where the church was, right in the middle of it. They ran from downtown, they ran from there out into comfortable suburbia. A year before I got there, everybody 16 and under walked out of the church. So I walked into church, average age, about 65, 70. My elder is 93 years old. Brilliant, but 93 years old. That year, that was March, I went to the North American. I met one of the Restoration Movement's, better known evangelists and church growers. I said, what do I do? Explain the situation. He is honest with me. He said, I have no idea. You tell me, you get back with me. I went home and I determined to do nothing but preach Jesus for 9 months. That was in March. By November, we were averaging almost 7. And the growth just kept going at that point. Till I made a terrible mistake because I was not analytical. Where were you when I needed you? I left too early. I thought, done my job, time to go do this again somewhere else. I didn't leave leadership. And a few years the next leader came in. It was a great return for him. Demanded a lot of money. I called him once and he said, I work 9 to 5. That's it. I will not be out in the evening. I'll never go in somebody's home after 5 o'clock. He says, I'm a 9 to 5 guy. Killed the church. Killed the church. So I would challenge you to consider the rest of this year making a theme of Jesus, focusing on Jesus. We do a seminar we call the Relevancy Seminar. We talk about Scripture, we talk about, and tomorrow I'm going to do a section of that on the 5 unique characteristics of Jesus. And I'm just encouraging you, change the focus. I know there are a ton of issues that need to be done, but let's, it's just like if you've heard these sports stories over and over. Coach comes in, they got a losing team, what does he do? Goes back to the basics. You want your church to be motivated, and not everybody, the 95-year-old lady there, she's probably never going to tell anybody because all her friends are Christians. She may never, but what about the other 40 to 50% that are in the workforce, that are talking to people every day? Let's get people excited about Jesus. That's all I'm saying. All right, anything else? Oh, okay. I thought I heard a question.
I got a comment over your
Richard, go.
COVID gave the church a purging. Those that were for real, were faithful and stuck through thick and thin. Those that were nominal, it just purged. In the last 12 months at Legacy Church, the congregation's had 72 additions to the congregation, 19 through baptism. And part of it is because 80,000 people have moved into Polk County in the last 3 years. And the reason why is because of the governor, because of the sheriff that believes in law and order. But we've grown 80,000 people in our county in the last 3 years. And the church is feeling it. We've got good people coming, and the people coming in, quality people. I mean, they just roll up their sleeves and they're not just saying, what can I do to follow? What can I do to lead? I'm going to start a small group in my home. I'm going to start this ministry, that ministry, the other ministry.
So here's my question for Legacy.
Exploded.
Did you have a strong online presence?
Oh, yes, that was part of it, too.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. One of my students ministered one of the largest AME churches in Orlando, and they had already had an online presence. So his Sunday attendance grew by 25% that he never lost.
So, Paul, part of the online, we were going to do a week Easter revival emphasis, whatever, and it never happened. Steve just put it all online instead of having 150, 200 people showing up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 26,000 people connected online.
Yeah.
So what we expect, 150, 200, ended up 26,000 people connected.
Yeah, and the problem with that is, I love the digital age. I just tell them that. Glenn, I teach a Zoom class every Tuesday night, and it's great. But I have no way to follow up. I have no way of knowing what's going on. I'll end with this.
So Philip never followed up the Ethiopian eunuch.
No, the Holy Spirit did.
Yeah,
But,
the North African churches were the strongest for the next 1,000 years.
Possibly, yeah. So, a man I know went to the Billy Graham Association and said, and asked for permission to survey their list of people who made a decision at their conferences or their rallies, whatever they call it. And he was given permission. And of the ones that he could find, which was a large number, only 6%. Only 6%. Because with all the preparation, with all the follow-up, with everything they did, only 6% because it was a salvation gospel. That's why. And I'll guarantee you those other 94%, the majority of them, probably think they're still safe and going to heaven. All right, my last statement to you comes from Mickey Blue Eyes in a famous line that said, "Get out of here." Rest well, see you tomorrow.
Hey, Steve.